Okay, it is April 8th. Unbelievable. Easter is over. Half a quarter of the year is gone. We have a great guest today. Lots going on. The war is occupying most people's thinking. But before we get rolling, let's have that classical guitar in action.
Now all the leaves are brown and the skies are gray. And I went for a walk on a winter's day. Now I'll be safe and warm if I were in LA. I'm California dreaming on a winter's day. I stopped into a church I passed along the way. I got down on my knees and I began to pray.
Woo! Well done, Johnny. Well done.
Hey,
Lots going on, gentlemen and lady, and the world is turbulent. However, the technology wars and the innovations spike is gigantic. And Johnny, not a lot has changed in 1 week, but what's in your mind?
Well, a lot has changed in 1 week everybody's been following the strategy of the war, if you will. Lots of friends, and I like to say that I am a decorated veteran. So it's been interesting to watch the approach that we do. One thinks of winning a war, of maybe meeting on a ship and getting a letter of, hey, we have been defeated. Whether it was in Germany in World War One in the boxcar, when Germany was defeated, whether it was back in Paris when Germany was defeated again, or whether it was the Nimitz in World War II. You go and you say the war is over. There's no such thing these days. There's no such thing as meeting at a place, meeting at Appomattox, and saying the Civil War is over. So it's been interesting history, if you will. It all is of how people solve things and how wars are solved. From our point of view, the price of oil has dropped overnight from 100 plus to 90. Dropped, I think, $20 overnight, and then the opening up of all the networking, if you will. Not only the physical networking, right, but also the intellectual networking and the virtual networking. So all of these things will add up to what do we know? We don't know. But the question is, we have not signed. There was no meeting at a ship. There was no meeting at Appomattox. So where are we? Well, we're somewhere in purgatory, where people are saying the war is over, but then somebody else would say, well, it's not quite over. So the world was being rearranged, if you will, between the North and the South, and I happen to think that it all goes back to China. That's my belief. I think everything related to or relates to what China can do, and keeping China from doing what we don't want them to do. So that's the first thing. That's a huge thing. The second thing is, the great state of Texas is still booming in terms of moving here and creating enterprises. There's a group from India that just moved to Houston. I was called last week, and they invited them and really, really had a great ceremony. They're going to provide about 2,000 jobs. It's the only company outside of China that really makes solar panels. So that's good. I interacted some with the people who run the economic development of the great state of Texas. And then, of course, on the worldwide view, there are a number of things going on that I have been concerned with. Number one is the movement of different universities and how people are approaching their university education, especially at the graduate level. Whether it's engineering, whether it's biology, whether it's chemistry, whether it's social science. Should we go to school in where? Maybe back to Europe? Hey, maybe we should go to school in China. Where should we go and pursue the degrees of science, those things that make countries great, and those things that create the new thinking patterns. I'll remind everyone that when I was in graduate school at the Great Northwestern University, most of the scholarship was done by German scientists, right? And Germany had some of the best universities in the entire world. So I think that looking at how talent moves around and then combine the entrepreneurship with that is interesting, because entrepreneurs will follow the talent. Entrepreneurs will follow the science. And those people who invest in entrepreneurs will also follow the science. So I read my PE report every morning of what's going on with venture capital, what's going on with the consolidation of wealth and what people are investing in. Well, I'm just not sure, Andreas, that we can get all of the money back from all of the investment in AI, which is sum total of all of the technology that goes into data science and et cetera. And you probably know that better than me that a data science center is really electricity and what to do with all of the heat that's coming out. Unlike your server that we have, your server on your computer shuts down, but this has to
That's
run.
right.
It has to run all day, 100% of the time. The heat that's coming out of there is absolutely horrendous. So I was telling someone the other day, well, when I think about service, I think about electricity and the heat that's generated, and how do we keep things cool so that our economy and this data world that we're living in, and how we purchase stuff will continue to roll. So I'm just not certain that the trillions upon trillion dollars that's spent there will be recuperated. And finally, of course, as we all know, is having a devastating effect on how we think about jobs in America and how we think about opportunities for future generations.
Got it. Got it. Well, again, lots going on and
Oh yeah,
the ways
tons
of
going on.
thinking of what's happening. But I'm curious what Llewellyn King is thinking this morning.
Well, I'm thinking that we've saved ourselves from a huge self wound in which we would have become more of a pariah nation than we already have set out to do for reasons I do not understand. Had the president at 8 o'clock last night unleashed what he threatened to unleash on Iran, which was a destruction of its civilization, a country that is a civilization that goes back thousands of years and at least very well documented for 2,500 years. And we saved ourselves, but it's a fragile ceasefire in a fragile time. My day was filled with people from all over the world sending me emails as though I personally was responsible for this and could take some ameliorative action. It was a very grave day yesterday, a day that I will not quickly forget, while the sword hung over both our standing as a civilized country and the situation for people living in Iran. Not everybody who lives in Iran is a mullah. Not everybody who lives in Iran wishes us evil. There are a lot of Iranians living in this country. Many more would like to live in this country. We are not out of this problem by any means. Today, there's some doubt going on because Israel has been continued to attack in Lebanon. And as a result, Iran has again closed what used to be called the Straits of Hormuz, and this time around we're calling it the Strait of Hormuz. I looked up that word, and it's quite an interesting history. It's a naval expression, and it was straits, plural, not straight, singular. You are in financial straits, huh? John Sibley Buckley, you remember that?
I do.
Financial straits, not
I don't remember
financial
the experience,
straits,
but I remember
if I
hearing
might
about
say
it.
so, Dr. John Sibley Butler. Uh, you've got to get your S's in the right place. Other things hang over the future. How are we going to get through an election? What will happen if Trump is seriously uh, uh, censured in the midterms? You're going to have a situation where the president is going to lose a lot of the authority or the ability to act that the remarkably pusillanimous senators given him under Republican leadership, likewise the House. And he is not a man who takes to censure happily or easily. We also have just today reached $39 billion in the national debt, which means that we'll be paying for it. If we balance the budget immediately, we'd be paying for it or our children will be paying it for a very, very long time. I've been trying to look into this issue, and in my television program this week, I interviewed a financier, Michael Farr, who said, well, basically, we're handling the debt with inflation. Johnny, you will understand this, that the more inflation you have, the less onerous the debt, but everything else is also devalued. So your lovely house, which suddenly became worth, God knows I don't have a house, but supposing it became suddenly a $250,000 house becomes worth $1 million. Of course, everything else is degraded, so you haven't gained anything. That is an enormous deficit, and it's fallen out of the national concern. And the other thing is that Foursquare, in a way, faster than I anticipated, artificial intelligence is here. It's beginning to change work. It's beginning to change expectations. It's beginning to change the possibility of how we're going to organize ourselves as a nation and as a world in the future, what people will do, how they will earn livings, all of those things, and security that we thought we have, we don't have anymore. First off, we see a new security situation developing with small autonomous weapons may be more important than large men or man and woman controlled weapon systems, which have always been the American predilection, large. And of course, the defense contractors are inclined to push for the large system. And suddenly you have drones costing a few $100s that can be transported around the world and inflict unbelievable damage. So we have a new security threat there. We have a cybersecurity threat we have not had heretofore because of the ability of AI to penetrate cybersecurity systems that to this point in time have appeared to be fairly robust. We also continue to have some very aberrant weather across the country, and it looks as though the Pacific may be unduly warm this coming year, which will make it very hot. So it's going to be a very interesting time in which we celebrate our 250th year as a nation. And I would say about that I've just been commissioned a few minutes before we went on the air to write an article about that, and quick thoughts that flashed through my mind is we've made some terrible mistakes, but we've also piled up a lot of substantial virtues. And at our best, we are remarkable and wonderful. And at our worst, it's shameful. I fear yesterday was not one of our best days.
All right, all right. Well, let me introduce our guest, and I'm wondering what she's thinking as from her point of view. She's a world traveler, and she's Tania Rodriguez, who is the CEO and founder of Green Habitat Investments. And Green Habitat Investments is a forward-thinking property development and investment company dedicated to green and sustainable construction, implementing principles such as bioconstruction and permaculture to create infrastructure with minimal environmental impact and maximum positive contribution to communities. She's a big speaker on sustainability and multidisciplinary approaches on construction and so on. Welcome, Tania.
Hi, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here. Thank you for sharing all the knowledge, and I'm sure that everybody that is having this window of opportunity to learn more every day from your podcast is honor. So thank you.
Well, tell us about you a little bit. And not everybody knows you, unfortunately, but even though you've been even at the World Economic Forum in many places, Tell us about you. Tell us a little bit about green habitat investments and what are you working on, some of the key projects, and we'll go from there.
Okay, well, everything started when I decided to go architectural school, and I fell in love with sustainable studies and everything related with regenerative design. That back in the day, it was not such a trend to think that you can actually do regenerative agriculture or regenerative tourism, but then everything started becoming as a solution for how to integrate the old knowledge that we all know that our ancestors, like civilizations like the Mayan civilizations, which I happen to know very well because one of my constructions happening in Tulum, Mexico. And I'm doing other projects around the world. And one of the views for regenerative architecture is to understand the way of living of the communities in the ancestral way and the present way, and obviously forward thinking. And to the point of what's the present moment and how are we being impacted by all this new technology, AI, and the great possibility of investments coming to America, and how do we become that ship of development? We cannot just say technology, economics, social progress, politics. We need to include the ecosystem, obviously environmental health. And my company is specifically focused in preservation and conservation of first resources. We have an award of eco-conscious architecture, and that was given to me as a part of a planning that happened pre-construction. I put together cameras and all data for animals and all species, different trees, and all the data that I could collect that will support life after development. And now that the development is done, one of the hotels is a 26,000 square feet construction that it was part of a big development in the area. And now the data is saying to us that after we all finish construction, because my neighbors also had to do their part, how many of those species came back, or how much of the species we were able to preserve. And that's so valuable to understand first, because we can work with governments and we can have incentives, which that's the key point of understanding, like, for instance, companies like the one that just came to Houston that Mr. Butler was saying about this factory for solar panels, or many other energy and renewable sources. We need to make sure that we can work with governments to make sure that we have well, I would call it more like the credits that we need in order for us to procure this line. Part of what I've done, not only in the architectural and the development, I'm savvy in all other forms of sustainability. I love infrastructure, especially, that I've been developing some solar farms, planning and collaborations in some developments from 90 megawatts to this big plan that we had for 240 megawatts solar installation. That still we need to reframe, because politics and governance always comes and is trying to understand and articulate different ways of understanding economics, and then we as entrepreneurs and creating the social I would say, and sustainable base for all our developments, either in any I would say in any industry. It could be architecture, construction, obviously technology, it could be energy. We must at one point navigate these very tumultuous times. Like in my opinion, I have to be checking on the dollar all the time, and it's related to the exchange currency since I've been doing global developments. So it's all about navigating, and obviously having the mentors that will help you to navigate this and stay aware and create a set of solutions that we can present to new generations. You all know that I have a daughter, and I always try to incorporate that into my conversations, because it's not only seeing the world as a 40-plus-year woman, but it's seeing the world as, what am I doing with my 6 years old, and how am I going to explain AI, which I use now for the homeschooling. I use AI, and this is perfect. I love AI because a part of it is helping me to develop the way I want it. And then I can travel the world also by using technology, and it helps so much. Even going further, I don't know things that are available for me, but thanks to technology, I can always have it at reach.
Got it. Johnny?
Well, I feel very good. As I say, for disclosure, I met Tanya when she was a student of mine at Monterey Tech
Yeah.
some years ago in my entrepreneurship and strategy class. And she sit up right there on the top row on the right-hand side and asked hundreds of thousands of questions. And then when she came to America uh, with our MBA from UT Austin, she got involved with our MBA program at the University of Texas Austin. And we spent a lot of time on the blackboard in my office at Macomb. So full disclosure, I have followed Tanya from the inception when she owned 3 businesses in Mexico City, and I consulted with her when she sold those businesses, and then have watched her blossom in America. So my question is this: I think Tanya, that when we look at what you call the integration of the social, the entrepreneur, or the business world, with the great emphasis on what happens to individuals. So let's just take one component of yours, which is energy. So I know that you are doing the solar farms, and so when you look at the movement of solar farms with the political apparatus attached to it, and then when you look at the reintroduction, if you will, of petroleum-based energy, how have you maneuvered the change in landscape of energy that was directed by politics? Because I know that you were really we were really doing cellular farms at one time.
Yeah, and I'm still in the race. I just needed to adjust. And the way that I've done it, because the tax credits were expiring and we were not able to get into the construction phase as soon as we wanted, based on obviously time and also permitting. A lot of what is happening right now is not changing the vision, and this is so important for me to specialize to especially say it. We're still doing renewables. We are very committed into all the part of sustainability and to find ways to get either autonomy on energy and autonomy on food, which also is part of the study of agro solar. How do you create those solutions that are multidisciplinary, as long as also for monarch sanctuary, sorry, and the monarch sanctuary. Thank you, Mami. The monarch sanctuary as a part of the pollination efforts to create a solution where everything that we are putting out there in the land would just not be one specific, I would say, it will not cover one solution of energy, but it will cover a multidisciplinary regenerative solution for either communities. Now, going back to your question, the energy had to change because doing solar is not available the way that we wanted to do it with 240 megawatts and 700 acres developed. Now, this is keeping us very entertaining, going more into the local microsystems and create more of a co-op solution to still place the energy and also to look into who needs the energy that cannot afford not to have the energy. Where is this? Obviously, we need all the time. There is a shortage in energy everywhere, and we're looking into the players that will allow us to still sell it, have great PPAs, and at the end, create the funnel of revenue that we need and stay away a little bit from what the government is not creating for us, which is a solution for tax. So it will take a longer perhaps to recover the investment, but now we are talking to investors that first of all will not compromise the vision. The vision is, investor, if you are a green investor, if you understand the vision and why we are committed to stay away from fossil fuels, because you have room for everything. It's not like one way or the other one. We need to understand this is not trying to demonize one specific energy or versus the other one. The same in architecture, the same in all the technology and all the other industries. But when it comes to renewables versus fossil fuels, there is something very good when you do fossil renewables, because it creates a sense of security. And this is on to the point of the previous comments you had before. Once we create that food source through solar and also the component perhaps of water, we can do things with the water and what the earth is giving us as a substance, I would say as solutions, then we can expand on those and we can create different sources of revenue depending on what the resources of the land we have. Again, we are going to keep the vision on renewables. It's becoming a little bit more of a funneling the right investors. People come to me and say, we want to invest in this specific matter, but they are not necessarily doing it for the right reasons. And I'm profiling the investors much harder right now, because we do need to have only people who are willing to come with us and help us navigate this very uncertainty that we can hear right now.
Yeah, I like the alignment with investment. The investors need to be aligned with what your concern is. So do you see, what do you see in the future when you look at the impact of data centers? I mean, in terms of our electricity. Now, people would say straight out that we will run out of electricity.
Yeah.
We will run out of electricity. That is, we're headed toward an iceberg on the Titanic, if you will. How do you think about that? And what we do is respond by more generation. That is, we create more generation. In Texas, they're creating more generation rather than what we would say is control, so that you could save energy with controls. Do you think that we would keep up with the demand for electricity, or do you have this thing in the back of your mind that, hey, we can run out of electricity? How do you think about it?
So I saw the chart of Austin, the way that we consume electricity, and there's a priority on the renewables, right? Either we have all the solar or the wind farms, and then once we finish with that, then we start doing the non-renewables. We are done with our renewable sources every day, like very early during the day. So we still need to go through having a lot of solutions that obviously they are not environmental healthy right now, because coal has a lot of issues, and nuclear is not developed as well. So obviously that will take time, having all the developments of nuclear, like the way that other countries have had already micro reactors that are providing that. So I would say I would love to see more of that nuclear happening in America, but it will take time and it's capital intense to develop. So right now, data centers are a huge problem, right? I mean, the society is really going against them, and if they are not well planned. The way that you plan them correctly is you have to have, obviously, the water component taken care of, the community component taken care of, and then you don't become part of the problem of the community, but you create solutions. I like the idea of doing a specific data center energy solutions, because you then tackle the source of the problem and you create, because the way that we need to chill those data centers are not going to have enough energy ever to chill them. But this is something I want to say. We also need to see what other countries are doing. And you did mention that part of this big problem with the war is obviously goes back to China. And it is true. It's an energy war. So the idea that we have to get more educated, more, as you say, quality of college. And this is one of the reasons I love the University of Texas and why I decided to move to Austin. It's because I believe that we need to have education that will help us to open up to the better technology and to the better solutions. to see what other countries are doing and how we are going to react as an Americans to create solutions for us, but also solutions for the world, because we always need to remember that we are part of one big world called the Earth, and that we need to make everything part of the sustainable growth for other towns as well, like talking about not only what is happening in the United States, but what is happening in the world.
Thank you.
Llewellyn, chime in.
Thank you. I'd just like to make a statement and then ask some questions, if I may. My statement is that we are not going to see the kind of exponential growth in data centers that we expect, because there are things coming along, mostly chips that are more efficient, maybe photon chips, which won't generate any heat, and most of the consumption of electricity, as you so correctly said, Tania, is going to cooling. They're using more water and less air, which is certainly reduces the amount of electricity you need. And we're seeing multi-purpose chips where the amount of work coming out of an individual chip is going up all the time. So we're not going to see this forever and ever, because that's madness. You have the whole world covered in data centers, and it's not going to happen. But so a lot of work is going on. I'm particularly interested in the use of light instead of electricity in chips. The Japanese are working very hard on it. I heard a very interesting lecture by a young woman who left NVIDIA to go and work on photon chips for Nippon, which I thought was a very interesting move, very smart young woman. And so we shall see about that. But right at the moment, it's exponential growth. I was wondering, Tania, what about virtue that turns out to be toxic? Sometimes we do something that we think is first rate for the environment, and then we find we paid a high price for it. For example, in New England, they reduced the amount of gas piping coming in. They would not allow new pipelines. The result is that from time to time they burn oil, and they're importing liquefied natural gas all the way from Norway, which is obviously a terrible environmental cost to pay. And sometimes we just rush in to do things. One I heard of very recently was where eucalyptus trees were established because of their ability to absorb carbon, except they were putting down tap roots into aquifers, particularly in places like Florida, which are dependent on their aquifers, and you don't want all that water sucked up by eucalyptus. So what sort of precautions do you take to see that what looks virtuous is in fact counterproductive?
Well, it seems that sometimes with this humanity, we are just doing sometimes trial and error, and that's not the way that we should be treating our Earth, because there's only one. And the trial and error, it's affecting a lot. And every single time that we create a solution, we do need to make sure that we have studies and years of understanding, and obviously experts. I work always with biologists, and I always work with people. But I heard about the eucalyptus tree that was stuck in the water, and I was like, really understanding the problem here is to create a scenario where everything is not an impact is just impossible. We do need to understand everything will just create an impact. Now, the positive impact, or the way to measure the impact, it's what is trend right now in regenerative design, because you can say I reforest, or for instance, in some of the projects that I've done, the deforestation of the land versus just doing modular and sectional architecture, by creating just designs that would just be responding to the actual environment, or the actual natural terrain of the land. So instead of going against nature, you create solutions that go with nature. That's in the design phase. So I would like to see more designers and more planners to be on the upfront of any implementations. And that has to do with a lot with policy. Regenerative designs are one step into concluding a group of different, I would say, entities or institutions saying yes and making sure that it's checking the boxes. So when you go to the policy and you say it may not be there as a part of today's enforcement to make sure that we have this one big study about the consequences or what we are going to do with the waste after the solar panels end their lives, but it must be part of the policy and the governance. And this is why I just say if we can create the governance from the beginning of the idea that it takes all the planning that is necessary with all the integration of different institutions that need to say something. Make sure that we create boards to support what all that planning and check the boxes to understand. And all of that is done before the implementation. Once we have an issue, like let's say an enormous production of seaweed on the Caribbean because the pesticides that were used in the Amazon or the climate change that it's been raising the temperatures of the oceans and all that is creating a problem. Okay, now is different. We don't have all that planning. We don't have that policy in place because the planning now we have create a solution ASAP. And I know the urgency because there are things that cannot just be waiting. And then I do believe also that it's a necessary collaboration. We need to sit on the table and we need to understand localized community entrepreneurs and every single player in the society that can make an input in how to solve this together in a very communitary effort. The problem with a lot of what is happening right now in the world, and I would say this is part of my comment, is we have a tendency to be very separated from the common solution and the best solution that we need to find as a community, as a global entities. So that would be my take on that.
Thank you. I want to ask you a land use question, which really follows on from what you said. Here in New England, which is the smallest state, there are a lot of farmland is going down to solar panels. And yet, when I look around, we don't have any data centers. But when I look around, I see pictures of data centers. There are all these expansive roof, and there are no panels on them. Why? Likewise, there's an enormous amount of area that could be used for solar panels. The railway right of way, the median strip. I mean, a lot of land that is underused that could be hugely productive of electricity with solar panels without taking any precious farmland. But this goes back to your point, I suppose, of what is planning. And then I want to throw one idea to you, which is something that intrigued me, which is in India, again, where land is in very short supply, they're building solar trees, which are just concrete structures. They look like a tree with lots of arms. And on each one is a panel with ability to turn towards the sun if necessary, or to turn to the south, which is generally where you turn. I wondered what we're doing to try to improve land use, what kind of structure we need, or do we need legislation to improve land use?
Yes, so I wrote an article about how to expand the use of not only the land, but also the buildings that are old and we are not using. So the infrastructure can be set in different places, even in balconies. So the idea of creating this technology and products, and once I was in China, I went to Guangzhou and I visited all these companies that are doing manufacturing for solar panel technology at the time. And one of the things that fascinated me was that it could be a solution where the entire house become an energy generator hub. You know, to the point from Mr. Butler, like he say, are we going to run out of energy? The answer is yes, if we just don't generate energy everywhere. We have a capacity, and from this time now, we are creating robots, we are having self-driving cars, we are I really my next big investment is to have a robot for my house. That will help me a lot. The idea of us living in this specific time in our lifetime, and I'm very excited about that, is because everything that is being developed should be put into the gray solutions, right? So how do we create the land and we maximize our energy production, and also very important part, how do we take all the carbon and capture the carbon and create the effect, create a solution for the effect of the greenhousing that we are doing in the earth. But I have to say this, everything could be viewed as a window of opportunity. We have a window of opportunity in every single square inch of this earth, either if it's the ocean surface or if it's trees with solar that follow the sun, which also, like when I was traveling in Singapore and the way that they were powering all these parks, and they don't use the typical infrastructure that is old, dated from years ago. They every time they start a project, they just will create better and better solutions to, and the innovation is the key. That is part of the class that I was taking in UT. How do we implement innovation for the greater good of our world? Even if we use the ocean as a surface for decarbonation, or we use the lands in Texas that are not being used because of the drought issues that we've been experiencing. So how are you going to use all that underutilized land? We have solar panels. And this is the moment where I knock at the door of the policy makers and I say, just make it easier for us to create all these innovations and all these technologies by supporting our work. And how are they going to be supporting our work? By making it so accessible in the funding. Because everything goes back to the economics. I can have 1,000 ideas in how do we utilize all this old roof. The other day I was staying in a hotel and I look at the window, and this time I didn't have a pool view, but I had the roof of a very huge, I was thinking it's a convention center. And I was just thinking right now, I need to put together an investment and funnel resources to make sure that we are utilizing this underutilized surface in a convention center. So yeah, innovation, entrepreneurs that will be taking the time to trigger the innovation, because sometimes it takes longer, it takes more effort, and it takes also a certain amount of risk. So if you see an entrepreneur that is creating all these solutions, celebrate that entrepreneur, because it's not easy sometimes.
Who are your clients? How do you initiate a project?
Okay, so in the past, I've been doing the discovery myself. And this is one of the reasons I travel. I have to say that I traveled to Thailand the first time where no plastic introduction was still in the area. And then 5 years later, I went back to Thailand and all the plastic and all the bags and all the products from junk food was already in all the islands. So going back to my clients, I do the discovery in this specific land that I found that has to be obviously a virgin land with the first resources there. And I do the discovery and an assessment on what can I do to maximize the architecture going by the rules, meaning the permeable and impermeable. Obviously, everything has to go through a code. Sorry, I had my alarm. And then after I do that, I create a design following the natural landscape of the terrain. After I create the design and I put together my team as well, I have a team of engineers, designers, and everything you can need to build a multifamily. In this case, I just finished a boutique hotel. I start doing the construction, supervise the construction, and then have the final product. Now, I turn that specific investment into a live hotel. So now we're talking not only about the discovery of the land or the construction that has an appreciation. I'm talking about regenerative travel. So it's very interesting because I have many clients through my line of business, but right now, as the final consumer is the person who wants to travel to nature and they want to stay in nature that will give them peace, that will give them a sense of health, that will just help them, like the Japanese would say, that their pressure will lower significantly when they will go and do the forest walk. So part of what I'm creating in these sanctuaries is with architecture and preservation of nature, you go and enjoy the environment and enjoy nature, and then you create a healthy self. So those are my clients, the people who wants to stay for a week in a resort type, and that they are willing to not go to the big resorts, which is nothing wrong about them. I sometimes use them if I need to take my daughter to a water park or something, but I rather prefer to be supporting ecotourism and green travelers.
Thank you.
So Tania, tell us what are you working on right now? What's in front of you in the next 6 months? What should we know about that?
A lot. Okay, I'm so happy because every time I have my projects active, I thrive. I thrive with my ideas. So I'm starting to design a new boutique hotel. I just got the new okay with the land. I just did the preliminaries, topographic design. We do search for caves because in the area where I'm building, there's a lot of water underneath. So obviously everything has to come as a solution for water treatment, water conservation. And then I work with all the trees around to understand how is the architecture will be positioned to get the less impact possible. And then the reforestation part. So that part of the design, like I love it. And I will be designing the core of the boutique hotel for like perhaps 4 months, and then hopefully going to permitting, and then perhaps starting construction within the next 6 months. And that's going to be a 2-year project. So it's a very good problem to have because in my previous, the hotel that I just finished, the boutique hotel Vita Tulum, it's been with no inventory whatsoever anymore because we've been doing a lot of really good reservations and price optimization and working with AI to create the funnels of occupancy. So that's another thing that I was busy for the past 6 months. I stepped down from my role as an architect and I went into understanding how AI could just maximize my revenue and my funnels of occupancy in this business model. So thank God that actually is being created and I don't have to be really supervising any more of that. So I have more time to go there. Now that's from the boutique hotel point of view. From the energy point of view, I just had a very, very successful meeting. One of my business partners, she is willing to go ahead and do with me a set of micro energy hubs that we are right now in the R&D. We are going to be doing the developments where the energy is needed most, and most likely just go to the place and localize and do the infrastructure. I love developing my ideas, so I get in contact with creating the infrastructure myself, even like having the teams and supervising how the development keep going. And this is going to be the first in-ground sanctuary for monarchs, butterflies, and combined with agro-solar. I think we're going to do probably 5 acres of agro-solar, and perhaps we're going to be either having some beehives to create some honey. So the idea is to create a full alternative hub of supplies for the community as a micro model, of course, and for preservation and conservation as well. And at the same time, create the energy hub. So that's something very interesting. We're looking into perhaps doing 3 sites in the next 5 years. One of them was proposed in England, just for, to follow up on this conversation. The idea is to do one, since I do global business anyway, the idea was to create one in Texas, one in Mexico, which it's very good. I'm from Mexico City. For whoever does not know, in my architectural part of my studies I did in Mexico City, and then I came here to do my second master's degree that was very much into the entrepreneurship and financing part. But yeah, so the part of the infrastructure that we want to create in Mexico City, and we're starting conversations with all the governance there to understand also where do we sit the infrastructure that is needed, but it's the same. Instead of creating the sanctuary for the monarch butterfly, we are creating the sanctuary for the melipona bee, or whatever species needs to be empowered and rescued and protected in the specific area where we are going to create those energy hubs. And the third one, this is a proposal for one of my business partners, that she wanted to go and do a project in England. She just recently was speaking with some entrepreneur and big investors in England. She attended an event in the House of Lords in London. And I know that we have some doors that we are considering to see where are we going to be implementing this energy hub, and what species do we want to concentrate for the preservation and conservation part.
Tanya,
Got it.
Tanya, do you think there's a collision course here between the investors and your ideas anywhere? That is, when we look at the culture of investors, of course, people invest in different things, and there's always been this thing around that we want to invest in things that will protect the earth and so that we could be one with the universe. Do you see at all, when speaking to investors, do you see any pushback on the ideas of being one with the universe? Do you see anyone saying, well, this is all good, the question is how you're going to make money and return the investment? How do you deal with that built-in collision in all aspects of investing, I might add? No matter what it is, there's a collision. So do you see any collisions, and how do you deal with that?
A lot of them, especially because in my early years of entrepreneurship, I didn't know how to filter the right investments. Like at the very beginning, I was just open for an investment because I was eager to go ahead and develop my ideas. But there's such a thing like, a bad investor could be very expensive, because then it's pressure and is not aligning with the specific character of the company that I'm creating. And one of the big problems that I had at one point is one investor wanted to purchase a property and just redo the entire first ground floor, where all the trees were laying that were giving views to the upper floor and to the penthouses. So for me, my projects could actually, depending how the design is, but it's something called like Bertle economy. Like if you're in a penthouse and your view is very much dictated by the tree that we save, you don't want that tree to go. So I cannot afford to have an investor that wants to turn into ownership, trying to change the layout of the building once we did all the work, right? We did the planning, we went to the city and make sure that they didn't charge us for a full deforestation. And they were saying in the city, it's not possible. We charge for one lot. And I'm like, it is possible. I'm sure that you can actually give me a specific percentage. And then we changed the policy. And I'm very happy for that. So the investors who are right for us, our investors will celebrate that we are creating not only one solution, but we are paving for other people that now want to do modular engineering or architecture, for them to have a discounted price, because they don't have to pay the full lot because someone else already had that battle. So I have to say also the investors, I'm in a very male-dominated industry since I did architecture, and since I was in the MBA also, like I remember being one of 3 women of a 60-person, right? So I am in infrastructure, I am in engineering, I'm in architecture, and I am in energy. And a lot of the big money that it was made in energy is always a male club. So the investors not only have to be conscious on what to do for the expected return of investment, but also how to expect of working with a female, that how to working with someone who has a life as a mother, and I do accommodate everything the best way. And there's many ways that women CEOs, we need to deal differently than a male CEO. And so we are talking about a little bit of that difference in social roles, but this is my passion. So I'm very happy to keep having conversations with investors. And the first funnel to really understand what investor is going to be the right for me is hopefully they have already invested in this type of projects, because then they understand the return is going to be perhaps a little longer, but also the idea that if you hit a unicorn because you're investing in a company that is working with AI technology, the return of investment will just be exponential as the risk. So yeah, it's a little bit risk, but it could be that then you sit down with that company and make it through the very troubled parts, and then you have a big rewards.
Okay.
Thank you, Tania. Gentlemen, I'm looking at the time. Final thoughts, Johnny?
Well, I think, of course, as I said, I've known Tania since she was 20, 21. And it's good to see her grow into her ideas, but she's always been a strategist. And she's always been in lots of places, in lots of places. As I said, when I met her, she had 3 enterprises in Mexico City. And, and working with her is always a delight. But I like the idea of forcing the investment to the environment. I think we don't see that a lot in our investment strategies, especially now with data centers and those kind of things. We have to reassess where we are. So I think she will always be Tania, and she will always have great ideas, and she will always look for money to invest those ideas. So keep rolling, Tania.
Thank you.
Final thoughts, Llewellyn?
Well, I want to congratulate you on your co-stars, Tania, the dog on the couch, and the too brief appearance by your daughter. It's made the show for me. No, you're very interesting, very dynamic, and very exciting to hear about your journey.
Thank you so much for your words. They mean a lot to me. I really honor your work.
And bring your daughter. I want to see the daughter. Call her.
She's absurd. I actually asked her, I need some space because I'm having a meeting, and she was quiet, but I didn't.
Well, bring the dog over.
She made this art for me while I was busy.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
What about the dog? What's the dog's name on the couch?
Yeah, her name is Sirena. You have to roll your R to say it. It's Sirena. It means mermaid in Spanish. Sirena? Hi, Bob.
Oh.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, Tania, we'll keep tabs with you. Congrats on everything. We'll circle back, and we shall have you maybe within a year to catch up and let everybody know your progress and your projects. And we'll talk soon.
I will need your help. So yes, we need to have a meeting soon. Gentlemen, it's been my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me to this amazing window where everybody can hear and learn. And I'm very humble to be part of this club now.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Johnny, take us away.
Well, I know it's kind of late. I hope I didn't wake you. But what I've got to say can't wait. I know you'd understand. Every time I tried to tell you, the words just came out wrong. So I'll have to say I love you in a song.
Woo! Well done, Johnny.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Have a great week.
Bye. Take care, Tania.
Thank you. See you soon.
Okay, bye-bye. Take care, Llewellyn.